Okay, let's get started with our new chapter. Our first lesson is going to be following these two goals. We're going to identify and graph integers on number lines and find opposites and absolute values, probably some new vocabulary. Okay, now that you got today's date and page number written down, let's move on. Here's your warm-up today. You got 3 questions. Add and subtract, and then give the even numbers in the number line from 1 to 10. Go ahead and mark those. Come back when you're done. All right, so here are the answers you probably got. 41, 72, and then all I did was put a dot on the number line where they were supposed to be. Even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So we do have some notes on here that you'll be copying down. Again, not the whole page, just the certain things that I'm going to be showing you. So let's take a look here at the little scenario. It says the highest temperature recorded in the U.S. was 134 degrees Fahrenheit in Death Valley, California. Lowest temperature recorded was 80 below zero in Prospect Creek, Alaska. That's quite a difference. The two big things I want you to see here are positive numbers and negative numbers. Okay? The Death Valley was an example of a positive number. Positive numbers are greater than 0. Okay? Usually, they may be written with a positive sign, but mostly we just don't write anything in front of them. Negative numbers are less than 0, and they are always written with a negative sign in front of them. It's almost like saying, instead of negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit, you're saying subtract by 80, but it means the same thing. I want you to make sure you have those two definitions down because we're going to deal with positive and negative numbers today. I want to make sure you got that copied. So let's take a look here at an example of identifying positive and negative numbers in a real-world situation. So for your notes, you're going to want to write down example 1 and also what we're looking at here. So I'm going to want these in your notebook. So it says, name a positive or negative number to represent each situation. So the two we're going to look at here is a jet climbing an altitude of 20,000 feet and taking $15 out of the bank. Some pretty common ones if you fly or spend money. So what is A? Well, A is actually a positive one, and you would write it down as positive 20, 200,000 feet, or most people are just going to write it as 200,000 right there. Okay? So we'll have our answers written down and our questions. Taking $15 to the bank, that's withdrawing, and that is a negative number. So we put a negative symbol in front of it. We say negative 15 or minus 15. Have those down before moving on. Here's another example. You don't need to write down your notebook, but it says 7 degrees below 0. We're not far off from seeing those temperatures around here. 7 degrees below 0 is the same as saying negative 7. Okay, it's a negative number, and it can be represented with the less than symbol for subtraction, so minus 7. All right, you have 2 that I want you to do on your own. Go ahead and write down in your notebook, practice 1, and the answer to an increase of 5 points and a loss of 15 yards. These are the answers you should have came up with, plus 5 or 5 for number 1, and minus 15 for a loss of 15 yards. All right, a couple more notes before we get into practice or example 2. So we can graph these positive and negative numbers on a number line. You guys know how to make number lines. You just make a line and some dashes, and the numbers go in order. So on a number line, opposites, this is a new word I want you to copy down. Opposites are the same distance from 0, but on different sides. And integers, which is a new word for this chapter, integers are all whole numbers that are either positive or negative. So this cool document that I made, or image I made, I want you to put in your notebook. One thing to note, 0 is not negative or positive. It's a neutral number. Anything to the left of 0 is a negative integer. Anything to the right is a positive integer. And I have 2 examples of opposites here. We have negative 5 and 5. Those are opposites of each other because they are 5 spots away from 0 in both directions. The other example I have is 2 and negative 2. And those are 2 away from 0 on both sides, so they're called opposites. Have this down. This is important to have before moving on. All right, so let's show you how easy it is to graph integers. So if I had a number line here that goes from -5 up to +5, and it says graph the integer and its opposite on number line, this is how you would do it. Let's start with 2. So I'm going to put a dot at 2 and a dot at -2. And that usually is good enough to mark, but if you also draw a line with them, then you can see that that's an opposite. The other one here is -5 and 5. So I'm going to put a dot at -5, a dot at +5, and then I'm also going to connect these so I can show that they are opposites. Have this down before moving on. All right, before you start practice 2 in your notebook, the first thing you should do is draw a number line. And your number line needs to go on both directions at the highest number. So the middle is 0, and the largest number we have out of all these is a 9. So our number line has to go up to 9, and I'm just going to do a couple here. You can go ahead and finish it from there. Come back, have a complete number line, and answer these in your notebook, and then we'll move on. And these are the answers you should have had. Again, you don't have to draw the lines. I do that so you can see how I'm matching up the opposites. I encourage it, but you don't have to. You can just put the dots. All right, hopefully example 2 wasn't too hard for you. Let's move on to example 3. A couple notes before I get into example 3. Example 3 deals with absolute value. Another note I want you to put in your notebook. So the absolute value is an integer and its distance from 0. So we always represent absolute value with these lines on the side. You'll see we have an example here, which I want you to copy down. And in both scenarios, the absolute value signs have a number on the inside. One is -3, one is 3. And the one thing you'll see is both of those equal 3. So if you put absolute value lines on the outside of numbers, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, you always write it as a positive integer because you're looking at how far away it is from 0. So in this scenario, 3 is the absolute value. So have this definition down and have down the example that we had at the top. You can put the bulleted points if you want, but I'm not worried about that. All right, so if you look at our example here, using a number line, I want you to, well, I'll let you choose if you're going to write this down in your notes or not. But it says, use a number line to find the absolute value of -2. Now, -2 in the absolute value may say is -2, but remember, if it has these absolute value signs on it, it's going to equal 2, no matter what. So if I asked you to graph the absolute value, make sure you put it at a positive. Okay? Use a number line and find the absolute value of each integer. So that's what you would do. Here's 2 more. We have the absolute value of 8, which goes at 8. And remember, the next one's -2. Again, -2 is the same as +2 because it has the absolute value sign. So you don't have to write those down. They're just 2 more examples. And it's your turn. So now you have a couple problems, 7, 8, 9, and 10, that I want you to put on a number line. Okay? Go ahead and put that down in your notebook. I'll be checking for that, and then answer the questions as you go. So here are the answers you should have gotten. For absolute value of -10, it's 10. Okay? Just get rid of the negative symbol. For number 8, the absolute value of 6 is 6. For 9, the absolute value of 3 is 3. And for 10, the absolute value of -5 is 5. All of these, that represents how far away each number is from 0. Hopefully you did well. All right, go ahead and complete your box of thought using full sentences in your notebook. Give good thought to it. If not, you may be sent back to try again. And here is your quiz for today. 5 questions. Go ahead and answer these to the best of your ability, and when you're done, we'll see you over as I'm checking you off. That's it for today's lesson. We'll see you next time.